The man who stole $1 billion and disappeared without a trace. March 15th, 2012, Minneapolis, Minnesota. A Monday morning. Cold, gray, ordinary. The offices of Peregrine Financial Group open at 8 a.m. as they always do. Traders log in. Phones start ringing. Coffee gets poured. Nobody notices anything wrong. Nobody except one man. Russell Wasendorf Sr., founder, chairman, and sole owner of Peregrine Financial, sits alone in his car in the company parking lot. The engine is running. A hose runs from the exhaust pipe through a cracked window. Next to him on the seat is a 4-page handwritten confession. He has been stealing from his clients for 20 years. Not thousands, not millions. $215 million. Taken. Hidden. Gone. But here's what makes this story different from every other financial crime you've ever heard. Wasendorf didn't disappear. He tried to die. The real disappearing act, the one that should have been impossible, happened long before that morning. It happened in plain sight, for 2 decades, inside a regulated financial firm, under the nose of federal regulators who check the books every single year, and nobody saw a thing. This is the story of how one man fooled an entire industry, and the far darker story of the system that let him. To understand how Russell Wasendorf stole $215 million, you have to understand who Russell Wasendorf was. He doesn't come from money. Grows up in small-town Iowa in the 1950s. Modest, Midwestern, unremarkable. The kind of kid nobody writes books about. But Wasendorf has one obsession: futures trading, the raw, volatile world of commodity markets. Corn, wheat, oil, currencies. He teaches himself the mechanics, reads everything, practices relentlessly. In 1980, he founds a small trading newsletter out of his basement. Cedar Falls, Iowa. Population 36,000. About as far from Wall Street as you can get. But that's the point. Wasendorf isn't trying to compete with New York. He's building something different. A firm for ordinary people. Farmers, retirees, small business owners who want access to futures markets but don't want to deal with the arrogance of Manhattan. He calls it Peregrine Financial Group. For a while, it works. By the 1990s, Peregrine has thousands of clients and hundreds of millions in customer funds under management. Wasendorf builds a gleaming new headquarters in Cedar Falls, a landmark building, the most impressive structure in the county. His name is on charitable donations across Iowa. He funds journalism schools. He writes books on trading. He gives speeches at industry conferences. He becomes, in every measurable way, a pillar of American financial life. What nobody knows is that by the mid-1990s, possibly earlier, the firm is already dying, and Wasendorf has already started stealing. The method is almost insultingly simple. Futures brokers like Peregrine are required by law to hold client funds in segregated bank accounts, money that belongs to customers and cannot be touched by the firm. Every month, regulators require a bank confirmation letter proving those funds exist. Wasendorf figures out that nobody actually verifies where those letters come from. He opens a post office box, just a P.O. box, rented for a few dollars a month, using an address that looks almost identical to the real bank's address. When regulators send confirmation requests to what they think is the bank, the letters go to Wasendorf's P.O. box instead. He intercepts them, types fake balances on fraudulent letterhead, sends them back. That's it. That's the entire scheme. For nearly 2 decades, the National Futures Association, the industry's self-regulatory body, audits Peregrine annually. Every year they send confirmation requests. Every year Wasendorf intercepts them, forges the responses, and sends them back. Every year the auditors look at the fake letters, tick their boxes, and move on. The real account balance by the end, around $5 million. The fake account balance on the forged statements, over $200 million. The gap, $215 million, goes into Wasendorf's personal accounts, into his lifestyle: a private jet, multiple homes, a gourmet restaurant he opens in Cedar Falls just because he can, a media empire, a publishing company. He doesn't live quietly, he lives loudly, publicly, as if daring someone to look. But that was just the beginning. Because what makes this case truly extraordinary isn't the theft itself, it's the timeline. Wasendorf pulls this off from approximately 1993 to 2012, 19 years, through multiple regulatory overhauls, through the post-Enron tightening of financial oversight, through the post-Madoff hysteria when regulators across America swore they had fixed the system. He does it with a P.O. box and a printer. How did no one see this coming? The world is changing around Wasendorf, and he cannot stop it. The National Futures Association, the same body that has been fooled for 19 years, announces it is transitioning to electronic verification of bank accounts. No more paper letters. No more mailed confirmations. Direct, digital, instant. There is no P.O. box in the world that can intercept an electronic bank query. Wasendorf knows it is over. For months, he tries to find a way out. He looks for investors. He looks for a buyer for the firm. He tries to raise enough money to quietly cover the hole before anyone notices. Nothing works. The gap is too large. The math is too brutal. There is no version of this story that ends with him walking away clean. On July 9, 2012, the NFA runs its first electronic verification. The real bank balance comes back, $5.1 million. The balance Peregrine has been reporting, $220 million. The NFA freezes the firm immediately. They call federal regulators. Within hours, the Commodity Futures Trading Commission is involved. Then the FBI. That night, someone notices that Russell Wasendorf has not been seen all day. The next morning, July 10th, his assistant finds him in the parking lot. Unconscious, barely alive. The suicide attempt has failed. He survives. And when investigators reach into the car and pick up the 4 pages sitting on the passenger seat, they find a confession that is so detailed, so methodical, so eerily calm, that it reads less like a man breaking down and more like a man filing a final report. He writes, "I have committed fraud, for which I am so deeply sorry." He lists everything: the P.O. box, the forged letters, the amounts, the years. He had planned to take the secret with him. The system made one fatal mistake. It went digital 20 years too late. What happens next moves at the speed of financial catastrophe. Within 24 hours of the electronic verification, Peregrine Financial Group is dead. The firm files for bankruptcy protection on July 10, 2012, the same day Wasendorf is pulled from his car. Trustees move in immediately. Client accounts are frozen. Thousands of customers, farmers who had hedged their crops, retirees who had trusted their savings to a man from Iowa, suddenly cannot access their money. The shortfall, investigators confirm, is $215.5 million. Gone. Spent. Unrecoverable. The trading community goes into shock. Not because the fraud is the largest in history, it isn't, but because of where it happened and how it happened. This wasn't a shadowy offshore operation. This wasn't a complex algorithm nobody understood. This was a federally regulated firm in a mid-sized American city, audited every year, that was stealing client money with forged letters for 2 decades. Congressional hearings are called within weeks. The NFA faces brutal questioning. How did 19 annual audits miss a P.O. box? How does an industry watchdog not verify that a bank confirmation letter is actually coming from a bank? The answer, investigators discover, is devastating in its simplicity. Nobody ever asked that question before. The rules required that confirmation letters be sent to the bank and returned by the bank. They simply never specified that someone needed to verify the return address. One procedural gap. 19 years. $215 million. Wasendorf is charged with 145 counts of lying to federal regulators. On the 17th of September, 2012, just 10 weeks after his suicide attempt, he enters a federal courtroom in Iowa City and pleads guilty. He does not contest a single charge. The judge sentences him to 50 years in federal prison. He will be 124 years old when he is eligible for release. He is led out of the courtroom without a word. The cleanup takes years and recovers almost nothing. A court-appointed trustee begins liquidating Peregrine's assets. the private jet, the real estate, the restaurant furniture, the publishing company equipment. Every physical object Wasendorf touched with stolen money is cataloged, appraised, and auctioned. The total recovered, roughly $27 million, against $215 million stolen. That is 12 cents on the dollar. For thousands of clients, the loss is permanent. Farmers who had used Peregrine to hedge their grain futures lose their entire margin accounts. Retirees who believed their savings were in a segregated, protected account find out that segregated means nothing if the regulator never checks. The NFA overhauls its entire verification process overnight. Electronic confirmation becomes mandatory, industry-wide. The P.O. box loophole, which technically existed in the rules for decades, is closed permanently. But the harder question lingers. Harry Markopoulos, the analyst who had spent 9 years trying to expose Bernie Madoff, testifies again before Congress in the wake of Peregrine. His message is the same as it was in 2009. The regulators are not looking, he tells them. They are checking boxes. They are trusting paperwork. They are auditing the appearance of compliance rather than the reality of it. What happened at Peregrine was not a sophisticated crime. It was not a clever crime. It was, in the words of one federal investigator, the financial equivalent of leaving your front door open for 20 years and being surprised someone walked in. Russell Wasendorf Sr. is currently serving his sentence at a federal correctional facility. He will likely die there. The firm he built the gleaming headquarters in Cedar Falls, the brand, the client relationships, the 30-year reputation dissolved completely within weeks of his arrest, as if it had never existed. And in a way, it hadn't. The clients had been paying into a fantasy. The auditors had been auditing a fiction. The regulators had been overseeing a ghost. For 19 years, one man with a P.O. box and a laser printer convinced an entire industry that he was someone worth trusting. And the most frightening part? He very nearly got away with it. Not because he was brilliant, because no one was actually watching.